All right, welcome to part 5. Hopefully, there's an end in sight, but we're about halfway through. And today we're going to be finishing up managing users, the 2.1 section, and then we're going to hit up 2.3. And Bob, you gotta you gotta keep me here on track. I can't be going on all these tangents everywhere. So
Yeah, something tells me that I'm gonna
that's
have to rein you in a little more when you start getting off on the tangents. There. So one thing, and this is for the benefit of those taking the exam. Remember, there is some utility in knowing other ways of doing things. I mean, one of the key features of an Atlassian tool like Jira and Confluence is its flexibility, that there is more than one way to proverbially skin that cat.
a lot,
And
yeah.
and Alex is teaching you his way that he's gotten through experience. Is that always going to be the right answer on a certification exam? Maybe not, but it's I think it's beneficial to know that there are other avenues. So
Look at Bob making my flaws look good. Let's talk about that viral post too, by the way. No,
let's not.
you want to know the number, the latest number?
This
I'll give
video
it
is
to you.
going to surpass
Yeah,
those, because people
you
are
think so?
people are well, I think so. These ones within days get into the hundreds. So
Hundreds, yeah, no, yep, no, they're doing well. But we're at 88,000 plus views on that post. So, all right, well, let's jump into it then. I'll start sharing my screen, and we are going to continue. Again, this is more of my audition and preparation for when I do the live training, so that I am able to handle the live stream because I've been telling Rob, and I met with a couple people, live streaming, live teaching, a little bit harder than just doing a pre-recorded video. So here we are again, 2.1, section 2.1. We did cover a couple of items. We're just going to pick it up where we left off, which was give users access to products. And I know we kind of rushed there at the end a little bit too, so we'll kind of refresh as appropriate and as needed. So when you're looking at user management and giving access to products, we mentioned in the last video, so make sure you are subscribed and make sure you check out the rest of the playlist. This is part 5. There's 4 other parts. You're definitely going to want to check those out. But when you're granting access, groups are very tightly coupled with all of this. So we're just gonna go through this and kind of show you the the experience and what you need to know here. So users are managed at the admin.atlassian.com. And I do want to take a break here, a little timeout, because this, if you're coming over from Jira server land, Jira data center land, this is new. This is different. But I think we mentioned this before. But when it comes specifically to users, I think a lot of people are used to managing your users within Jira, but in the cloud, you don't. All the access and all the product stuff is happening upstairs. It's in
yep.
the admin land that sits above everything. So I just want to reiterate that very, very important point. Now, again, this whole original and centralized, you're going to want to follow whatever is said in the documentation, in the actual course that you get when you sign up for the course. And by the way, we do need to do an update. We have a date. Where's Rodney with his drum roll? February 10th is the day that I'll be taking the exam. So it'll be my 35th birthday present to myself if I pass or fail this dumb thing. Okay. So for the purpose of the exam, the centralized view is not in scope. And so a lot of our arguments between Bob here and Joanne from the exam prep, right, is because most of my experience is in centralized. Most of the things that I do in day-to-day fashion are in a centralized UI, but the original is really what's in scope here. So everything that in this documentation, you want to just focus on the new one, not the or is it backwards? Sorry, I think I had it backwards. This is centralized what you want. You don't
Centralized
want
is what you
original.
want.
Yeah,
Most of
original is the
most
old
of
one.
the most of the course, most of the exam will be looking more
On
at the
centralized.
centralized. That
Yeah.
being said, there are always going to be tweaks to the user interface, because we are in a cloud environment, and those changes from Atlassian
Yeah.
happen, minute by minute. It seems like so. Remember, when you are studying for this exam, the exam will be tied to the course.
Yep. And again, so centralized is what you want. So inviting users, we've kind of already covered this in the past too. So this is kind of more of a refresher, right? But essentially, when you invite new users, there's a pop-up window, and we'll log in here to Jira, and typical wrong window. Oh boy, I think I need to do ACP-520. Okay, and then everybody, give me one second here, because I do need to change. I wish that Atlassian's admin portal would be sticky. I wish I wouldn't have to change. I wish it knew which account I was in, and I didn't have to change every time. But feature request,
and I'm kind of like, oh, why is this stuck on this account? I actually needed to be on the other account, so I'm kind of ding you from the other side.
So what this is saying here, though, when you're gonna invite a new user, right, you're gonna be encountering with this thing here. So we'll go like Sean at kingbob.com, and this right here is where you're gonna give the product access. So if they're a user, that'll be a licensed user that'll be consuming a license. We have this new user admin, which again is not gonna be in the test yet because it's a whole new feature. So you don't have to worry about that, but you do have the ability to basically give them the user. That means they have a license. Customer, no license. User, again, over here means you do have a license. So you'll just pick appropriately for the product. So that's what this first section here is saying. And then this is where things get interesting. So if you want to take an existing user and give them access, you don't re-invite them. They already exist. So this window of opportunity here is missing. It's gone. And so the way you do that is you go into an existing user, like we'll click here into Rodney, and you'll see the UI here. And so again, the same rules apply. So if it says user, that means that they're consuming a license. And if it says customer, then that means they just have access to like your service portal, but they don't actually consume a license. And the user access admin, and not on the exam, but just know that it's a new thing where it lets you manage your users there.
Yep.
So that's what that's saying there. So again, you just go to your users and you grant the access. Now there is a different way. You got to click into here, and then you can do the drop down. And what this is going to do that's different from over here is if a product is not listed. So let me remove Rodney from this Confluence here, and I hit refresh. This item should go away. That Confluence line item is gone. So now you're going like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. How do I give Rodney Confluence access? It's not in the dropdown. Well, that's what this button's for. So if you click on this button up here, you'll be able to select Confluence and add them to the user. Now, if you all remember from the last video, alternatively, we can simply add Rodney to a group, specifically like the Confluence user one, and that's also going to do the exact same thing, and it's going to essentially add Confluence to Rodney's account. So for sake of this demo, I'm just going to add this, grant the access, and Rodney should now have Confluence access. So that's really, really easy. I think a lot of people might overcomplicate it than what it actually is, but it's personally pretty easy. So read that as in Bob and drag.
So there have been two. So Alex just talked about two ways of kind of doing it, right? You select the product and you select the role, or you select the group. And oftentimes that group is the one where licenses are whose membership in that group determines whether or not they pull a license. All right. These are kind of the same ways of getting that product access and in getting into that appropriate role. And you'll see that the way that it's done, it's still going to point to those same areas. When we start talking about things like default access groups and what a default access group is.
Yep. So we'll get into more details there in a second. All right. So as we continue this is important, right? So this is on the test. This is something you should definitely know. Who can do these things? Like, is it the org admin? Is it the site admin? Is it the Jira admin? Is it the administrator? Like, you need to know what all the different administrator groups do and who they are and what they can do. And in this particular case, it's the org admins. Again, this user access shouldn't be on the test because it's a fairly new thing. Andy's got a good point here. So Andy, how screwed am I then? My test date is February 10th. I've already signed up. I've already paid. I've already confirmed.
So I think what Andy is talking about, it's actually a different thing. The in the current Atlassian certification, there is a standing, kind of an elite standing, where if you have passed about 4 of the Atlassian certification exams, you can get the Atlassian certified expert.
Oh, okay. So it's not about that the test's going to change on me.
No, it's not. I don't think it's
I've
about
had
the
that
test.
happen before, and that deja vu right there would be very, very hard
Right. And so this
on
is
my soul.
so because you're going after your first certification, it doesn't apply.
You don't need to rub it in, Bob.
But
I'm working on it.
I'm just
I'm working on it.
educating the folks out there.
Just educating them. Okay. So creating groups. Do we need to talk about this yet? I don't know why they threw that in here. We'll probably talk about, let's talk about groups, right? So in this same UI, we've been in users this whole time, but if you click on groups over here, then you're able to create groups. And we talked about groups again briefly in the last session, but just to recap, you can create groups as just a container, right? Just a bucket where you put people into it to categorize, bucketize your users. That's it. These groups are beneficial because then you can take those groups and you can share a filter with them. You can share project access with them, right? You can do dashboards. So they're very, very beneficial from that respect. So it's not just a containerization aspect, but it does have, within the wonderful world of Jira and Confluence respectively, some additional bonuses. Now, optionally, this is totally optional, you can take said group and you can give them access to a product. As you can see here, this particular Alex's group here says none, which means that this group doesn't have access to any products. So if I put anybody in Alex's group here, all that happens is they're in a group called Alex's group, and that's it. Maybe if those groups are used within Jira for a project access or a filter share or a dashboard share, then they'll be helpful, but just doing that doesn't do anything. Optionally, as I mentioned, you could go and put a group into the product access category, which we talked about in the last video, and then placing a user in this group puts them in that category, but will also grant the license. And you want to be careful here, right? Because this can get hairy and it can get confusing, and you can accidentally forget that a group like Bob's group, which is not descriptive in any way, shape, or form, is granting licenses, and you're like, why isn't my Atlassian bill coming down? Like, I've removed them from the users group, I've removed them from that group, but they're still in a group that still gives them licenses. So you want to be cautious with your groups there and make your groups descriptive and be careful to just so it all makes sense.
And then one other caveat as far as the description of the groups go. Suppose you had a group called Alex's Jira group, and you put that into to allow product access to Confluence. Now, the name Alex's Jira group may have, now has no relationship at all with Confluence, but is still granting Confluence licenses. So it's always important to kind of dig deep and not just look at the name, but also see if it's allowing product access into which products.
Yeah. And up until very recently, once you picked the group, that was it. You could change the description, but you couldn't change the name. So I don't know if this is on the test. But just know that
you can change both the name and the description.
Yeah. And again, this is the newer feature. All right. So who can add the groups, right? It's the same group of people, right? If you can get to this page here to the users and groups, which is mainly the org admins, that's it. So anybody else, any Jira admins, any administrators, any Confluence admins are not gonna be able to get here, just the org/site admins. But again, refer to the official training for the name, but it should be org admin because I got tired of fighting the site admins already. All right, coming down the list here. So this right here is gonna walk us through something again that we did last time, which is if you take a group, so let's go back to my groups and I have Alex's group here. You have the ability to add this group to a product access. And the way we do that, according to the instructions, you go in the group access table and add product. So I don't know that that's correct because I couldn't see it. Did you see that?
Let me see.
There's no button there. When I go over here, I can only add use. Oh, they're down here. Then you click on add product. Wow, that's a gray button that I was not looking for. I was looking for a blue button. click on that gray button, pick the product that you want this group to be in again, and follow Bob's advice there, right? Like if you're gonna name it Bob's group, Bob's team,
Bob's Jira
be
group.
careful.
Make sure that
Yeah,
it's at least your if
just
you
Jira.
want that group to give access, make sure the only product that you specify is Jira and not
Yeah, because
something like Confluence.
yeah, right. Because then I mean, Jira will let you do, or Atlassian will let you do it, but you got to be very careful because then that's how things get very confusing. And as a Jira admin, Atlassian admin ain't gonna look very good for you, right? So apples to apples here. Try to stay as consistent as possible with the naming conventions here. So if I do that, if I just add it to Jira, now by me putting a member or user into this group or a member, they'll automatically be given a Jira license. And so that's how easy that is. And again, just know that the org admins can do that. Product admin. So the product admins is a little bit more interesting. So depending on which product you're looking at, and we've discussed this before, but let's go over here and let's go back into routing over here. Jira Service I can't speak. Jira Service Management, Jira Software are bucketized under Jira. And so if you wanted to make an admin for Jira Service Management or Jira Software, you have two options. You can either A, make them an org admin, and that'll automatically give them everything, or you can grant access and just give them the specific product that you want them to be an admin of, right? And so you can make them a product admin. They'll only be a product admin for that Jira,
Right.
not the other one.
So remember that for the Jira has several products under it, right? Jira Software, Jira Work Management, Jira Service Management. Now, if you want to make somebody a product admin of Jira, you're going to make them a member of a pseudo product called Jira Administration.
Which
and
is this one here.
Grants them administrator, the administrator godlike powers for
workflows, custom fields, screens,
work management, and and service management. So it's all in one. Confluence
over here
all by its lonesome,
because there's no other Confluence cousin,
right?
So they're all the same. So Confluence
so
happens
you do
over
that
here.
through Confluence itself. There will be a specific product admin role.
Okay, so that takes care of that one. Now, this one I would suspect is going to go, this is basically the inverse, right? So we just talked to you on how to add them. Logic will tell you, we'll reverse your steps and you'll be able to undo it, right? So again, centralized UI is the UI that the certification is under. Original is going to screw you if you're like me. Centralized, again, the same thing over here. The groups are the fastest way to do it. So all you got to do is you go to the product, you go to these manage access, and you remove group from the product. So this is drastic, right? So this is basically saying instead of doing like one individual at a time, you're going to remove an entire like species of people. That might be a little dramatic, but all you got to do is you go to products, you pick your product. So let's just pick Jira Software here. And we're going to click on manage product, and you'll notice that I have a bunch of groups. And so let's just say that we don't want Bob's to be a group anymore. Now watch this. I'm intentionally going to leave the default group because I want to see what happens. I want to remove this group. And so when I remove it, you'll notice that I can't. And the reason that is because it's a default group. And so you will need to make it not a default group. So you can change that to none. Click update. And then that'll remove the dot. So now that I don't have the check mark, now I can remove the group from the product. Now you will be tempted to remove something like this one. And so if we do the same thing, notice that it's grayed out, but also notice that this one's grayed out. You cannot mess with these. These are more immutable. These Jira software users, Jira software user access admins, these are default groups and they're just baked into Jira. So you can't mess with these. So you can have additional default groups beyond these, like the Bob's group, demo group here, but you cannot get rid of these groups. You want to be careful that these don't go away. The org admin, interestingly enough, you can get rid of. And in fact, I would highly recommend that if you are on JSM.
Wait, what? You can't
the org
do
admin,
that.
you can. You should.
No,
yeah, you can.
No, you
can't. Look, remove.
You can remove it from the product. Yes. Okay. Yes, you can. You can do that. Yes.
And then, so the tip that I'll give you is sometimes as an admin, so this is kind of like a catch-22, right? But if you have a Jira software admin, there will most likely need to be that individual may most likely should, hopefully, fingers crossed, also have to be your JSM admin. But some teams have limited JSM licenses because they cost 2 arms and a kidney. And so because of that, teams are usually a little bit more cautious with who consumes their JSM licenses. And you should be aware that out of the box, every org admin will consume a JSM license by default. And so what I typically tell teams is like, hey, if you want to be careful, maybe you only want one of your org admins to be an admin. We'll get rid of this group, put your org admin into another group, and put that group in here, right? Because otherwise there'll be every single org admin will take up a license. So if you have, like, let's just say you have 25 JSM licenses, but you have 17 admins for whatever reason, well, those 17 admins just took up 17 JSM seats. And so you don't have enough seats for all your agents. So you just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the removing, that covers this remove the product. Down here, remove access for multiple products from a group. So rather than going the route that we just took, you can actually come in from the group level. So we can go back to directory, we can go to groups, you can go into a group. And down here, you'll see the list. Obviously, you only have one, but ideally, we'll show you 2, 3 different products. You simply come over here and remove the product from the group. So know how to do that as well. Know that there's 2 different ways of doing that. Remove product access for an individual user. So we kind of covered this as well, right? So you could go back into your users, and we can go to Ronnie, and you have a couple of options here. You can just, let's just say we don't want Ronnie to have Confluence access anymore. We can just deselect that checkbox. Alternatively, we could remove them from this Confluence users group that just disappeared. So both methods will work. So let me put them back in. So the Confluence will show up, and then I can go over here and remove the user from this group. Removing that user from the group will remove this group, plus it'll pop this off as well. So there's no more Confluence over there. Why is Alex always picking on my name? Well, because Bob's here, and I'm
that's Rodney. Keep fighting.
No, and I'm afraid of Sean, so I don't want to piss Sean off. So, and I'm deathly afraid of Andy as well. So it's Ronnie or bust. Easy targets, Ronnie. Okay. So that covered that, and then all these are just the original. So look at that. We're making great progress. Deleting your Atlassian account. This is a little bit more extreme.
It is a little more extreme. So, this is kind of a weird place to kind of put it, but
I know. It's like, what? That's why I also looked back. I was like, wait, what is this here?
I mean, we will be talking about it a little bit later, but so I like to think of the Atlassian account as kind of your passport into your organization, your organization's sites and products, or other organizations' sites and products. If they know what your Atlassian account is, or if they can add you to their organizations, right? So notice this is different from what is called a managed account. In other words, a managed account is done by your company or your company, the place that you work for. If they have verified their email domain and you have set up an Atlassian account, an email using your company's email address, that's a managed account. And because it is controlled through Atlassian access and verified domains, your company has control of whether or not the existence of whether or not that Atlassian account exists or not. If it's unmanaged, you have the control of whether or not that Atlassian account exists. So when we're talking here about deleting your Atlassian account, this means it is not a managed account.
Right.
And you can go through and go ahead and cancel if you want to stop getting onto Atlassian cloud sites. But then there are going to be a few other things as well that are affected. Things like the Atlassian community, as well as any reviews that you put for marketplace apps in the Atlassian marketplace.
What about your certifications? Aren't those tied to your Atlassian ID as well?
Nope.
But you log into the account with this,
They
no?
log into the SSO, but you have control of your certification account through the you can specify 2 emails, and they don't have to be Atlassian accounts. All right, there is a single sign-on to tie into the account as well, but you can always change that up. And for instance, my certification account is tied to my personal email, not my business email.
So then how does Atlassian verify them, like through the community, right? Like how do they know that you have the certification?
Ask that question again, please.
Like how would Sean know that you have the certification?
Oh, right. Okay. Because I work for a partner, and there are requirements that partners have to maintain their standing. For example, platinum versus gold versus silver, I believe.
Bronze versus...
No, there's 3 levels.
I pay someone to check.
He does. He actually does pay somebody to check, and then I help her out a lot. I'm like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Actually, what we do is, or the way that you do that. Remember how I mentioned that there are that you can associate 2 emails on your certification account, as long as that business certification matches a partner's domain. That person counts as having,
I remember when Ronnie joined that you're like, hey, quickly go put in your RT email. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, again, but deleting is usually a pretty extravagant thing to do.
It's pretty extravagant thing.
Yeah. And most people are coming in through a company. So those accounts will go away automatically when you quit or change teams. So that you don't typically have to worry about it. And you won't, if your former company did a good job, you shouldn't be able to access anything anymore after you're gone. But this is more like for smaller, really small teams. Like I think we spent way more time on this than the people that are actually deleting accounts. But just read through this, and if it's not, I know it's in the guide here, but we'll check it. We'll jump into the course material in a second and see if it's actually in there. But I would kind of just know that your full name, public name, and email addresses are deleted, but the content you created with the Atlassian account services, such as pages, issues, and comments you created, are not deleted. It is very inconvenient though, because if your account's gone, then nobody's going to know who did it. There's just going to be a page that you left behind, a trail of tears, if you will, of just bad things that you, or not bad things, but just, things that you left behind that are now maybe obsolete. And there's just no traceability as to who did it. And it's really not a good, it's not a good position. You shouldn't leave your company in that kind of position. So deleting again is pretty extravagant. So I always tell teams like, hey, just suspend the access, but don't delete the accounts, because once you delete them, then there's no traceability anymore.
Right. One more thing, just for completeness. If you delete your Atlassian account, you have 14 days to reconsider. 14. So it will be in kind of a grace period state for 14 days.
If you change your mind, you can restore your account before the 14-day period. Once it's over, your account's permanently deleted. Okay. And this is how you can restore it. So question for Alex, other than peer pressure, why get certified? That's a great question. I don't know that I have a particular answer, because
I'm going to answer for Alex, because I'm going to be the I'm one of the guys exerting peer pressure. I think it's good for Alex to go through the process and uncover the things that he doesn't generally see on a day-to-day basis.
What are you talking about? I see everything every day.
Uh,
I spend 14 hours a day in this dumb tool. I sleep and I see Jira in my dreams. Not a healthy way to sleep.
all right, moving on.
Logging in as another user. This has to be my favorite feature because Jira doesn't lie, but people lie. And I can't tell you how many times this functionality has given me the evidence, the proof, the data that I need to go, you're lying. Here's what I see. Not relying on screenshots, not relying on hearsay, right? It's you as an admin can go in to any user and you click on the little dots here, just like this, and you have a login as user. Favorite feature. I use this a dozen times every single day. Couple things that you should know. One, it is the buggiest feature that Atlassian has. And I tell you this because once you click this little X on this box, good luck trying to find it again. Have you ever hit that, Bob?
I have not. Then again, I haven't had the privilege of logging in as another user to
Really? Oh,
kind of
man.
find out what they did wrong.
If you make the mistake of accidentally clicking this little X, because you got to access something that it's because this thing will cover over the UI some of the items. Good luck trying to find it back. It takes like an act of God to get this box to pop back up, and you can't go back to your account unless you like log out and like log out again and then log back in, and like it's like a whole mess. And like I wish this thing was more consistent. I wish that Atlassian would pop it up more, because once you make that mistake of clicking that X, she's gone. She ain't coming back either. So a buggy feature. I love this feature, but this would be the only bug that Atlassian, if you can fix this thing, I could kiss you. Number two. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So number two, you cannot, I repeat, log in as another org admin. So if you have a lot of org admins, then this is why it's another good reason to not have so many org admins, because again, or people lie, Jira doesn't lie, but it's hard to argue with an org admin because you can't log in as them to see what they're seeing, right? So just know that you can't check each other.
There's actually a few other cases where logging in as another user will not work.
If they never logged in, ever.
Correct. If they haven't accepted their invitation, correct.
If they're a customer and they've logged into the portal, you can't see them either, from what I've seen.
Correct.
Which is the biggest annoyance ever. Atlassian, that should be a fix, because I should be able to help troubleshoot my customers regardless if they're logged in or not. So Atlassian, we got to get a list of features here. Sean, you got any clout over there helping Atlassian make some changes to the Jiras? Because that would be a great feature to have. What else you got, Bob?
No, I think that's it. Those are the kind of the main points I wanted to drive through on logging in as a user.
The last thing I'll mention is that you can't be discreet about this. Atlassian will not let the person know that you logged in.
And it's gonna be in the audit logs as well.
Yeah, it's in the audit logs, and with this power, this is my favorite feature. Again, I do it because Jared doesn't lie type of mentality. But just keep in mind that with in the words of Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. This is a great way to get fired, ethically, right? Like, or unethically, I should say. So be very, very careful with the power you yield with this login as user. In Confluence world, it's kind of equivalent to that master key you can get, right? If you're on premium or standard or premium Confluence, you can get into any page. But yeah, powerful feature. Just be very, very careful, because again, it is logged. It does tell everybody that you logged in as that user, but unfortunately the paper trail, I think that the sub paper trail, it'll show as the other user doing the work. So be careful with that. All right, so that covers 2.1. Did we actually finish this section?
I think we did.
All right, so let's log in real quick, and let me take a look at my course here, and we'll run down through users and groups. We'll launch this. We'll take a look at 2.1 and see if we can actually finish 2.2. All right, so what you'll learn in previous lessons, you learned that product access is granted through product roles and product access groups, and that the users are granted product access by virtue of a group membership. All right, so what's a user? Okay, so user is any person under directory users. Users generally have access to at least one product and therefore belong to at least one group. Users consume a license fee for each product they have access to. However, they can have a entry seat that does not have any product access at all and therefore not billable. User can, in your directory, may have an account that is managed or unmanaged by a cloud organization. We will learn more about that later. Okay. Suspending users. Again, this is the best way to do it, folks.
Yep.
Suspend them. Don't delete them, because this is a suspension can be unsuspended very easily, even 2-3 years later. Deletion, she's gone forever. So there's information here on suspending users. So make sure you read through that. Make sure, like, stuff like this, not billable, key. You should have this like tattooed on yourself, like memorize it. Are not searchable in the user picker. So you should know this stuff, right? I can see questions of like, hey, here's a list of 10 users. They're all suspended. What shows up in the assignee field? Nothing, right? So stuff like that. Restoring users. So when you restore, it's basically the opposite. You still right click, or not right click, but you click on the 3 dots for the user and you can undo them. Now removing, you will have the option to remove them, right? But again, this is more of a permanent drastic thing. They're also not considered billable. You can re-invite them, but they'll have to come back in again. Now, I've never actually done this, Bob, but if you delete a user, remove a user, and then they come back like 6 months, they should still be the same user, but does their history of former user go back to not their former user?
I don't think so.
Does that even make sense?
Matthew is going in back on logging in as a user. Again, when one of
right
the
here.
limitations of
Look at that,
logging in
login.
as a user is that you cannot log in as a user who's also an org admin, as Alex
Right here.
highlights right now.
As highlighted here. Login users, you cannot log in as a user who hasn't been invited, but who hasn't accessed the product. And then you cannot log into external and even internal, for that matter, JSM customer accounts, unless they. I think this one's misleading too. I'd like to talk to Joanna about this one, right? Because you can't log into JSM customers. I wouldn't add the word external. It's all JSM
Somehow
customers.
I think it's related to the last thing that we have to talk to Joanna about. I keep meaning to Slack her.
Yeah, we got to reping her. All right, additional things. So prompt users to reset a password. This is mainly going to be if you're non-managed accounts. You can prompt the user to reset their passwords. You can suggest changes. So this is actually quite different and quite important, I think, that I'd like to call out. But in server and data center world, you can do virtually whatever the heck you want with the user's account. In the cloud, not so much. You can make recommendations, or as Atlassian calls them, suggestions, but you can't in bulk or even a la carte change anybody's email, change the display name. Like that all has to be done by the user. You can make recommendations and they can go and do it, but at the end of the day, it's the individual's Atlassian account. Now, if it's a managed account, then it's an even more complex thing, and you have to come in through your Active Directory. It's a whole thing. So be careful.
That's where you talk to your Active Directory person and say, "Hey."
And that's exactly what I do. I go, "It's not my problem. I can't do it."
And I think that's what you're supposed to be doing. The control of the user falls to one throat to choke, right? LDAP or Active Directory. So,
yep. User statuses in this final section. So active is obviously anybody who's licensed and active, and they're assuming they're in a product role. Invited means that an invitation went out, but they haven't clicked the blue accept button. And so they're still buildable. You're still paying for them. So if they're procrastinating, that's on you. So be careful.
Or maybe you sent it to the wrong email address.
Or that. So double check you're invited. Don't give free money to Atlassian people. Atlassian's like gonna put me on a naughty list one day.
How do you know you're already not on there?
I know, right?
Especially after this morning's video. Anyway, okay, moving on. Suspended.
All product access and admin privileges for their users have been suspended across. If you restore access, the user's product access and group memberships will return to what it was before. So this is what you want to do. And then deactivated is relevant to users with the managed account. So this is basically suspended, but from a managed perspective, because you can't suspend a managed account. Ronnie says that getting Atlassian upset. Actually, I think I'm in good graces right now with the Atlassian community or creators here. So, especially after today's post, should we do a refresh? I think we should do a refresh. Where are we at right now? These numbers just keep going up. What were we at when we started? Like 88,000 something? We just hit 91,000 impressions. This thing's just going. I'm 300. I gained 550.
If you're actually doing these live instruction things, you can't be sidetracked. So moving on.
Moving on. All right. You will be asked to interpret a user status and the available action. So yeah, memorize this entire page. For example, suspended user cannot access any product. Folks, this every letter that's in these, I would read through this entire course before the exam as a general rule of thumb, because if it's not on here, or if it's not stated the way it is here, it's not gonna. It's not like the correct answer is on this page somewhere. So make sure you know everything that's on here. And you may be asked to determine which facts are definitely true or definitely false about a particular user in a particular status. So again, it's very important that you memorize what's active, what's invited, what's suspended, what's deactivated. Org admins can't log in as other org admins, yada, yada, yada. All right, so let's do my favorite part, which is sample questions. Okay, so you see the following under directory / users in your organization. You got Amy, you got Inga, you got Steve. One's active, one's invited, one's suspended. Which one's definitely true? Steve has a managed account. We have no idea. No, it's not, because it will say deactivated. Amy belongs to at least one group. Maybe. We don't know. I don't think so. It's not definitely. So definitely not. Inga's email address has been verified. That is something we haven't really discussed, and it's still something that confuses me quite a bit. But invited, uninvited, active, suspended, that's a whole different category and a whole different section. But we don't know this for sure. Inga has an Atlassian account. This is probably true, because in order to show up here, you have to have an Atlassian account or an Atlassian ID. And Steve can have his access restored. This is also true. But I feel like this is more true than Inga having an Atlassian account, because she got invited, but the account doesn't exist until she actually makes an ID. So I can't know for certain that she has an account. Like, all I know is I invited her email, but if her email is like fresh, like never used Jira before, then it is possible she's going to be prompted to create an account. So I'm going to go with Steve, my boy Steve here. And I'm correct. The amount of sweat dripping from you, Bob.
So I need pictures of the testing center, but I know that there's no way I'm going to be getting said pictures.
You just come with me. Retake the test. Sign up with me. All right. You are viewing a list of names under directory users. The status of Jackson shows is suspended, which is definitely true. Jackson has a managed account that is deactivated. No, because deactivated means he's managed. Then it will show deactivated, not suspended. Jackson has a managed, so I would say no to this one, true as well. Jackson has had product access before becoming, well, I don't know. We don't know that. Jackson belonged to a group. Maybe. It's possible, but not really. Jackson can access a product in another organization. No. Jackson cannot access this one. I'm not even going to read the whole thing, but it's that one. By positive elimination. No, APEC does not actually endorse getting Bob to take the exam for. Isn't that not even possible? I got an email that my ID has to match perfectly.
Yes, it does.
All right. I almost got stuck in Mexico. I almost got stuck in Mexico once because my mom decided to put Alejandro on the ticket and my ID says Alex. Okay, 2-2. Here we go. Let's open up some of these IDs, and we got 15 minutes. We're obviously not going to be able to get through all these, but you guys like coming back for these, right? So we'll continue this this week. So what is an Atlassian account? You heard me mention it already. The Atlassian account's a little bit different than the way it works in on-prem, because these are kind of managed by Atlassian and they're owned by Atlassian and they're handled by Atlassian. So Atlassian account's your online identity, and Bob already kind of talked about it. It's tied to your community.atlassian.com. Clearly not tied to your certification, but it's tied to a couple of different things that are happening within the ecosystem of Atlassian. It's basically just your email and your display name, so your name. And that's kind of it. You can go in, there's a profile for your account. You can add different things like your location, stuff like that. But that ID, that account is what gets you access to the different products. So it's whether it's work management, service management, Bitbucket, options, status page. Ideally, in order to avoid a massive headache, you should have one account for all your Atlassian products. Because if you're like me, then you end up in this dumb dilemma. Because every time I'm changing pages over here, you can see that I have to re-log into a different account. So ideally, you only have one, and most people work for only like one company, and that's usually the case.
So there are situations in there, and I think I almost want to ask the people on there. Rodney is saying he has like 5. I can rattle off at least 3 accounts that I have. Oh, definitely 4.
Yeah, I have like 3 or 4 as well. Like every email, every one of my personal emails has like an account on it now.
Yep.
The managed account. So let's talk about this JSM managed account. So a portal only customer for JSM isn't an Atlassian account, but it is created and managed directly in JSM. You'll only have a customer account if you're logging into another company's JSM as a customer. That is not confusing at all. Check and see if it's on the test, because I think this whole thing here is a new thing as well. But let's talk about managed accounts for a little bit more, right? So the managed accounts, as we mentioned, is an account that's created by an identity provider, like an Okta or a Google Workspace or something like that. And those accounts are handled externally to Jira or to Atlassian. They get pushed in or synced in via your like Okta or something of that nature. And then your account just exists. Now, it behaves and acts the same way, except as an admin, you do have some limitations and some advantages, right? The limitation is you can obviously not delete the user. But the advantage is you can now streamline your onboarding process and group management in Active Directory. So select the profile here, manage your account, select email to confirm your account is managed. Basically, in a managed account, you as a user can't make any changes, and you as an admin can't make any changes. It's all managed for you, hence the name, managed.
Got a question for you. Can a managed account be unmanaged?
No, because if I have my thought processes, because then this is kind of where that shadow IT comes in, right? If Joe at kingbob.com isn't in any of my things, right? But he goes and makes his own Jira. The domain kingbob.com is tied back to that original org. And he shows up as my build user, and then I still can't delete that user.
Okay.
Even though I never added them or anything.
So let me explain.
But then again, this is my experience from my old UI. So it could be different in the new UI.
Let me explain a common situation for me where a managed account becomes unmanaged. And that is as a consultant, I typically use my work email as my Atlassian account. It is managed by the company I work for.
Right.
If I give that to a client on the client's side, on the client sites and things like that, my account there will be unmanaged.
Right. That makes sense.
So that's kind of
an interesting use case though, because I've never been in that situation.
I would say it's probably a more common situation if you do things like consulting and the like.
I've always used an unmanaged account for that, so I think we're good.
Well, on a client side, it's always going to be act as if it were an unmanaged account.
Yep. Verify domain to manage account. So this is a prerequisite of managed account. So you have to, if you're getting Atlassian access, like you have to set this up anyways.
So the first thing that you have to do if you're setting up Atlassian access is verify the domain, and a domain here. again, we're referring to an email domain. So
Yeah.
King,
Kingbob.com.
Alex@kingbob.com, everything after that @ sign.
Okay. So this page, though, and this is probably going to take us to the end because this page is probably the most confusing thing that I do here. Like, I don't understand this 100%. So when you claim an account, we let users know that with this domain that your organization manages their account when they go to their profile. As an org admin, you can verify your company's domain to prove that you own all the user accounts with that domain. Your company's domain is everything that comes after the @ symbol. That this part's the trivial. So this is easy. You can verify your domain in one of two ways. You know what? I take it back. I do know how to do this one, but there's another part in the Atlassian Access world of claimed and verified accounts that I don't get. So when you verify your domain from your organization, you can do two things. You can verify ownership of your company's domain or claim users' account. This is the part that I never get. So when you verify your domain, you can do two things. You can verify ownership of your company's domain, and two,
Okay,
you can
that's
claim
step
the
one.
user account. Step
Yes.
two is you can claim users' accounts within that domain. So what I've done is I click up like a claim button and it goes and finds accounts for me. And it says, here's like 10,000 accounts. Boom.
Yes.
So I've done
And
that.
this is where that shadow IT kind of falls into play, right? You know, people once you've verified the domain and you start claiming these accounts, people that have been using their work emails to set up Trello or set up Bitbucket, you know, that's where when you start claiming them, you're going to start seeing this shadow IT pop up.
Yeah. So more control over the Atlassian accounts on your domain. Okay, so verifying your domain gives you two benefits. You have more control over the Atlassian accounts from your company's domain. Those accounts become managed accounts, which means you can edit, delete, or deactivate their accounts. And the ability to apply security policies onto your managed accounts. You may want to require logging with two-step or SAML or SSO or whatever.
Yep.
Now, verified domain. So imagine your company is called Acme. You're going to want to own acme.com and acme.co.uk. And very important, I don't know if it's mentioned here, but you can only, like, once you're claimed. Like, you can't, like, another org shouldn't be able to go claim you.
Yeah, it's a act of deity like being to undo that.
Oh, yeah, so you can still give product access to users with different domains, such as vendor. Since these users aren't managed, you won't be able to apply security policies to them. Then there's a default security policy. Verifying the ownership of the domain. This take care of, folks. There's two methods. Atlassian prefers one over the other. I forget which one's which, but I know that they have a preference to one, and they don't like the other one. But these are just...
Yeah, I would think that they would look at it through DNS, but you know,
I forget. I have an email ticket somewhere with Atlassian. It's like, if you're going to verify, do it this way because we prefer this method. Or some, it's not that they prefer, but they say that it's a quicker turnaround than the other method. But in either case, when you're verifying a domain, I think this is one of the hardest parts of doing it. And this is more of a practical thing and less of an exam thing. But you got to get access to that root directory for your domain. Like, somebody somewhere in your company has to have access to your, mycompanyname.com folder. You got to go stick something in there.
Well, yeah, it's you definitely need to have a very detailed conversation with some of your system
IT
admins.
folks. Yeah, because you as your admin typically aren't in the position to have the proper access or to put this information where it needs to be.
Right.
So to host the HTML, basically this is all trivia, folks. So you literally just gotta. This is one of those things where, like, I'm surprised that this even popped up on the exam, because most your admins will do this once, if any, and then they're done.
Well, I'm going to put it to you this way. I mean, you're not going to have to know down to the step how to verify the domain. Is just understand the ramifications of the actual action of verifying the domain. So, like a few things to note. If you verify a domain and you actually use subdomains, let's say that You have us.kingbob.com and eu.kingbob.com. If I verify kingbob.com, do the subdomains get verified as well?
No, right? Like you got to do each one, no?
You got to do each subdomain. So
Yeah.
so each subdomain is going to be a separate verification process.
I think you, Bob, you should make like your own. Have you? I don't know if you've seen this on Udemy, but I've seen some people put like exam questions that they like make up and sell them. Like I was like, I don't know that I would trust that.
I don't know if I would.
But
I
it's
don't
not
know if
that
I
hard.
trust.
But it's not that hard to like, go just what's the distinguished user? Or there's not even a thing here. Okay. So yeah, so basically if you go down the HTTP route, you will go to admin. And I don't think I have it because you need to have Atlassian access, maybe. I don't even there's a domain. Yeah, I don't see the domain section here. Oh, here it is. You go to domains, but yeah, you got to verify. You click on add a domain, kingbob.com, click on next. And then if you're going down the DNS route, you basically provide this information, and especially this key here, this record or data, to your DNS person. If you're going down the HTTPS route, you're going to download a file and you give it to them and they'll stick it in the directory where it needs to be.
Right.
And then that's it.
Root directory on your company's website.
Yep. And then that's it. So then you can go to this website and then it'll show up as confirmed or not. Yep. So that's very, very those are usually the two ways. You can see there's two new ways, but those are usually not like, I think they're too new because they're probably never been documented here.
And they won't be on the exam.
So what is account claim for a domain? As part of the domain verification process, you claim accounts for your domain because anyone can create an Atlassian account. More users with your domain than you inspect may have an Atlassian account. So to find out which accounts on your domain have an Atlassian account, you can export and review a list of the accounts before you claim them. You can only claim accounts for a domain that's verified. From the table at the bottom domains page, you will see verified status. If you see unverified status, you need to verify your domain before you can claim any accounts. Oh. So this, folks, will come into play with M&As.
Yep.
Because you're going to be bringing on somebody else's emails from a different domain into your Jira. And typically you only have one domain. And so you have to go and add more. What are the different ways I can claim accounts? Well, when your IT team is centralized in one department, you can easily manage and claim all your accounts. We recommend you claim all the accounts from the domain because this allows you to manage your users more effectively and apply. This right here is the biggest benefit, folks, your SSO, so you can stay compliant with your security policies. This is really the only reason why we're doing it, because just having a Jira with no Atlassian access, and it really does suck that Atlassian kind of ties this up. Like I kind of wish that security would be free or at least bundled with your price, but you have to pay for the Atlassian access in order to then be able to apply the security policies, which then allow you to have the SSO, which in 2023, well, shoot, we're in 2024 now. In 2024, I feel like this should be like a, thanks for signing up. Here's your security policy, not a thanks for signing up. Let me get some more money and we'll talk security. We can claim all existing accounts and any new accounts that are created, choosing the setting. If you provision accounts with SAML just in time, we add new accounts to the default authentication policy. When your IT team is distributed and not in one department, you may only need to claim some accounts for a domain. When you choose to claim some accounts, you may manually upload a CSV that you want to claim. If you provision users, your identity provider will automatically claim the accounts. So you can review the accounts from a domain before you claim them. To review them, this is good, folks, to take a look at. So go there, go to your domains, see the claim accounts, and then export your users. We'll send you an email that basically gives you a recap of what's there. Claiming the accounts, you can either claim all the accounts or some of the accounts from a verified domain. When you choose to claim all the accounts, we automatically claim them all, which is usually what I do. I just click the claim and give them all to me. But rarely do I see a company that's like, I don't only want half. So but you just click on the claim button and they're all yours. To claim some of them, you're going to click on the thing, but then you're going to upload the CSV file with those emails. And when you provision users with your identity provider, we automatically claim the accounts. So this feels like something you should know. These are the claim account settings. So I would memorize this table to figure out what all this means and says. And you can change your claim settings. So you can, when you claim new accounts manually and want to claim it automatically, we add new accounts to your default authentication policy. So you can change it so it automatically claims them. And claiming new accounts manually, you can do it so you can claim them manually as you want to. The only tip that I'll give you is, like, if you have a really, really large organization, kind of like what they're saying, like, you may want to cherry pick your users. But for the most part, I think my opinion would be a better option to just do it. Just have it automatically happen for you. Because otherwise you have to go in and like do each user. And 10 users, cool. But 1,000 users, you're going to get some carpal tunnel there. Unclaim accounts. If you're when you unclaim account, you no longer manage the account. We remove the accounts from your authentication policy. Even though these accounts are no longer managed, users can still keep their product access. So I guess this is if you're going through a divorce. Is there an opposite of an M&A? Divestiture? Yeah, it's a divestiture, no?
Yeah, actually, it's a key part of
spin-off.
Like one of the first things that you have to do when you transfer an organization.
Spin-off. Oh yeah, you got to unclaim your accounts so that you can
unclaim the accounts, remove the verified domain.
Yep. So that's one reason why you'll have to do this if you're gonna go through an merger and acquisition. I second spin-off. All right, notify claimed accounts. So we no longer email users letting them know that your organization manages their accounts. When you claim an account, when you claim or unclaim, we let users that your organization manages or no longer manage. I can't read. Well, I'm getting tired. All right, notifications. Users receive product updates. Profile visibility. Users will see this. So just know that this is there. Claim your domain name. You may want to change your name if you change your address of your company, website, or emails associated with this domain. Here are some common reasons you may want to change your domain. You acquired another company, you're rebranding, or you're sold to another company. A few factors determine the path you can take to change your domain. So how you provision users with Atlassian, with an identity provider using system or for cross skim. I know I've seen this. Or by inviting users manually. How users log in with SAML sign-on account, and whether you want a domain change for the same name, same new or different Atlassian organization. When you change your domain name, you're also changing the domain name and your user's email address. For example, abc@domain becomes abc@newdomain.com. Changing the domain in your existing Atlassian account allows you to keep the same account history. So the procedures. Before you do this, you'll want to avoid losing access to your admin controls. Users losing access to historical data from old domain accounts. Users being unable to log in, single sign-on, and users waiting 14 days to access the accounts with the new name. Folks, my biggest tip that I can give you here, you can seriously screw something up here in your Jira. Specifically, you losing access to be able to manage your Jira. I would pay the money and get yourself your advisory services or some sort of a solution partner to help guide you through this process. Because just because you have to pay the badge that says I'm certified doesn't mean that you want to be tempting fate. I would at least open up a ticket with Atlassian and have them double check. Okay. Procedures for changing and moving domains. Depending on how you manage your users dictates how then the process you'll follow. You have two paths to choose from. Select the one that works for how you provision users. Manually invite users to Atlassian, automatically provision. I always just do this one because it's just a million times easier, especially when you have like a really, really large company. Rodney says, I have the feeling that Atlassian put a lot of thought into how manage rebranding on Atlassian on-demand cloud. Man, this article goes on forever. It's like the longest one we read. Okay. Change or move a domain when you manually invite users. To change domain names and email accounts, you need to verify your old and new domains and claim their accounts in the same Atlassian organization. To change the domain name, go to admin.atlassian.com, select your organization, verify your new domain, claim its email accounts, make sure the old domain is still verified, claim all its email accounts. To manually change the old to the new, go to the directory, go to manage accounts, select the user, change to the new email. To automate this, use the REST API. Wow. Have you ever had to do this, Bob?
Nope.
I've never had to do this either.
You can do probably a slow crawl through this, and we are actually over time. So
yeah. So let's just wrap this. Let's just wrap this up. This page here. All I would recommend again is open up a ticket with Atlassian. I don't know how much of this is going to be on the exam. This to me is pro level stuff, like because you can really screw something up here. Like really screw something up. So I would read through this documentation. I mean, if Atlassian's quizzing you on this and expecting you to have this memorized, like I would challenge them to know how to do this.
It boils down to understand ramifications.
Yeah, I think that's the basics though are important, right? Like unclaiming, claiming manually on automatic stuff. Like you should know those basics. I would know the facts about them. I wouldn't necessarily worry about. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like this is just so freaking hard. Like this is like one thing that I don't like. I don't like touching, but I'll do it. But I typically have Atlassian's hands guiding me. But we'll circle back. We'll come back to the section in the exam or in the course material. See what's actually covered there because there's a lot happening in this account.
Yeah,
but that's pretty much it for this. We're gonna leave it there, and we're gonna keep it. We're gonna pick it back up at what are managed accounts. Didn't we touch this already? Or you know what? Let's finish this one because this is a very quick one. All Atlassian accounts with email addresses of your verified domain are managed accounts. Done.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna come back. we're gonna come back and pick that up. Are we doing Saturday or Sunday?
I think you said Saturday.
Saturday. We're gonna do Saturday. We're gonna come back Saturday morning, and we're gonna hopefully finish 2.2, and hopefully go on to 2.3, and then there's nothing on 2.4. So hopefully
2.4 is a troubleshooting section. So we're probably gonna kind of stop down, review things like ramifications, what you would see as an admin type thing.
Yep. So we'll probably just do 2.4 inside of the course material, but we'll go over the last couple of our articles on Saturday, and then we'll finish out chapter 2 on Saturday. And then the next week, we'll start chapter 3 and then chapter 4 the week after that. And then I'm taking the exam. So thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all stopping by, and see you Saturday. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't.
Yeah. See you Saturday.
Bye.